Take a deep breath in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's do the breath of fire. It's panting like a dog. Equal exhalation, equal inhalation, pumping from the navel. Be forceful but relaxed. Take a deep breath in, hold your breath, and then relax. Okay. Um, do you think that equal and fair are the same thing?
That's different. That's difficult to say. I think that equal doesn't mean fair. We often think of it as being fair, but it's not
Mhm.
always fair. What do I mean by that? I mean that sometimes we can think that, okay, if let's think about basic income. The one of the things that's been going around for the past 10 or 15 years, maybe even a little bit less. If you are a multimillionaire and I've given you $2,000 a month, and I'm borderline poverty stricken, and I'm giving $2,000 a month, yes, it is equal, but is that fair? And we can look at it from both sides of the ball here. It's not necessarily that just because something is equal or something is equal, is it fair for those who are in a better condition or those who are not in a better condition? We were talking about a couple of weeks ago the ideal of equal opportunity. And equal opportunity, like we said before, it can sometimes be fair or it sometimes be equal across the board, but it's not fair for those who are in a situation which is considered, how can I say, those who are considered in a position of being an advantage because sometimes they have a situation which isn't fair at all. Because, like we said before, it doesn't mean that just because we were talking about equal opportunity that all minorities should receive an advantage, whilst all of the majority not receiving any advantage, and they have to make way for those who are minorities and have to receive this advantage. Do you understand?
So
So
you
that
basically you're saying that affirmative action may be on its face equal, but it's probably not fair for the collective members of the society. Is that what you're saying?
well, exactly. In fact, I think that sometimes we get caught up in the fact that, like you said before, the very first question that opened up this podcast was that the fact that sometimes we equate fair with equal, and it's okay to try both of them. It's okay to try to obtain both of them, because this is very, 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 how can I say, admirable. But they can't. Oh, they don't equate to the same thing because sometimes things can be considered equal but not fair for everyone, and that's where it becomes very problematic because we try to think, okay, just because we create an equal opportunity for everyone, it's fair for everyone. No, it's not fair for everyone because there are some people who are considered in that position of being how can I say, better off, having privilege, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they don't. Whether their families decided to to kind of blow off their privilege or things like that, that's a different story. But if we take, and this is one of the things that Dave Chappelle touched on, saying that that society who, like I said, I don't want to generalize too much, but that society where people are considered by the color of their skin, advantaged or privileged. They might have that privilege when it comes to, I don't know, some factors, maybe the police or something like that. But in the end, as far as opportunities go, they don't. You know,
Mm.
and that just only that furthers, that deepens the animosity, the rancor,
Mhm.
the vitriol that they may have in front of other people. You know what I'm saying? And they show that, and they make it known, and then other people who receive their vitriol, their rancor, have to react. And usually they react by saying, you had 300 years of being advantaged. So why should I feel bad because you're not advantaged now? And both
Mm.
sides are right. That's one of the things that I have to say is that unfortunately, having served in the military, having heard actually both sides of the spectrum, I would have to say that in war, in conflict, both sides are always correct from their point of view. You know, so they may feel disadvantaged. Those who feel that they have to give up their possibilities, their options because of affirmative action, and those who are receiving affirmative action may feel that it's about time, bro. You've been living off my shoulder. You've been living on my back for so long. I've created, saying the things for your grandparents, for your great grandparents. Now it's my turn. I want my
Mhm.
40 acres and a mule. Who's right? Both of them are right.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. You're saying that there's definitely a relativity component, and there's also a perspective component when it comes to equal and fairness.
Mhm.
Okay, now what about this? What if you are a company? You're a multi whatever. You're a big company,
Mhm.
honorable company, honest company, and you have a government mandate where you got to hire 50% of female engineers.
Mhm.
50% of your engineers have to be female, 50% of your engineers have to be of minority. But when
Mhm.
you look at the overall engineer pool, 80% or 75% of it is white men. So
Mhm.
by default, your best engineers are white men. So do you think it's fair for you to have this mandate where you still have to hire minority people and you still have to hire women, even though you're going to pass on a lot of very better qualified engineers that can do the job better, thus making your company more productive and more profitable? All the pillars of a capitalistic society. Do you think that's fair? That for you to have to hire along the guidelines of this mandate?
Well, yeah, this is something that we talked about last time, a couple weeks ago, even though we didn't go into depth about it. But I see two major problems here. I think that's what happens is that one problem is that no company, private company, should be forced to do anything that a government says that they have to do. Okay, if you want to tax us, um, um, penalize us, or say, if you want to
Well,
do this, but you'll
I,
notice
I
that
change it. You get taxed. You get heavily taxed, or
okay,
even
you
in
can have a
reverse,
tax.
you won't get the good big capital gains, or you won't get a good incentivized government grant if you don't hire 50 people, and then your competition, if they do it, they get big grants and big whatnots.
Okay,
Mhm.
well, I think that the governments, yeah, when they do these things, I can see where they're coming from, and I think that what I'm saying, it's a sense of cognizance. They understand that it is a problem, and we have to, what I'm saying, we have to make way for minorities, for the other gender, and things like that. Right. But like I said before, as a company, I shouldn't be forced or I shouldn't be penalized because I want to be competitive, especially if my government is a competitive capitalistic government. The second problem is, like I said before, there were two problems. And we talked about this last time, and we even actually went into depth about this one. It starts from a lower level. It's the schools, the high schools, the middle schools, and especially the elementary schools, and how in homes also, who should try to teach that there is no difference. You know, there is true, and it is factually true that you may find a lot of the best engineers who are of Caucasian masculine descent, but that's because the universities, the colleges, the high schools, middle schools, and especially the elementary schools have catered to those things, and the only way to really try to combat that is to try to create a society, a situation where the companies feel, wow, I have to decide. Do I want to
Okay,
take this person or take that person? And I think that fundamentally, if a company, I don't think really like, I think that people who run companies, I don't think that they're really genuinely sexist or racist. They're all about the bottom profit line, the bottom line. But we can't, coming from where we come from, what I'm saying, coming from the area of the Detroit area, we know that education wasn't so good. So even if we were outstanding or shined amongst our peers, or even if we were low amongst our peers, but especially if we were shining amongst our peers, that doesn't mean that we were high level compared to other people who had better opportunities from a
mm,
younger age. You understand? So obviously, things move forward. Quality is gained. Obviously, talent we're born with. There are things that we're born with, but other skills and other things that we pick up along the way. Those are things which I'm saying that if we don't have the opportunities prior to going to university level, to that formative level where we actually get to use what we deem as how can I say, advantageous to modern society, to the companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we won't be able to contribute, and we actually put companies in a bad place, in a difficult place, trying to hire us because we think that they have to, because government mandates it.
so you think it's just really a band-aid to like deeper problems, like, and we're not really addressing the root problem of the disparity of our educational system in America. Is that what you're
Exactly. That's what you
saying?
said last time too. You said that a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
You said that the fact that there is this disparity. Not there isn't this disparity at university level. There's this disparity at a younger level. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
When
Well, I
children are
say
young,
this. What about this? What if the NBA had affirmative action? So they have, because now the NBA is probably predominantly 80% men of African American
hmm
national. What if there was a mandate in the NBA that 50% of the players that played and started had to be Caucasian? Would that be
well,
fair?
that would be equal. That would be equal. Yes. Would it be
Yes.
fair? Would it be fair? But again, like we said, why do you watch basketball? Because it's
Yeah.
competitivity. You know what I'm saying? Why do you watch basketball? Because it's interesting. You know what I'm saying?
Would you say that'd be similar to like that your multinational company being forced to hire a certain amount of,
Exactly, exactly, and it's not
okay.
correct. It's not correct. I don't think that the NBA should hire. Say on your team you have to have at least 30% Caucasian males in your team. You know what I'm saying? If
Mm.
if the field to pluck from, to harvest from, is 95% African American or people of color, or even
Mm.
European, even today, because better than I do that the way basketball is being played now is much different than it was in the past. But that's getting off the point. But I see what you mean. But in a case like this, where saying where it is predominantly minority workers, because essentially that's what they are in this in this mechanism of we think about factories. Well, basketball is a factory. It pumps out games, 82, 86 games a year, not including playoffs, and these are your workers.
So maybe
These are people who make money. These are
so a lot of African American kids, a lot of African American men in particular,
Mhm.
are, especially at a very early age, are encouraged to play a sport that they have less than a half of a percent of making any money off of. and
Well, in that
not
case,
and not pushed into like careers such as engineers or being doctors. From a
in that case, why not? In that case, why not? And that's the
well,
same thing.
that's
When we think about, even when we think about,
yeah.
people come from white families. If your father's an engineer, your mom's a doctor, you know, you try to put them in schools where those attributes shine. Why not try to push them into those careers? So why not try, if your children are, how can I say, they're more they're more appropriated for playing a sport. And I had to try to connect sports or athleticism, like intellect, to Caucasians. Like I hate to connect athleticism to African Americans, to another group, but statistically and factually, this is what happens. But why not? And I don't think that's a problem. But I don't think that it's the hirer, the
Well,
employer,
the problem is
who should have
the
to do
pro-
that. But if you don't create an opportunity, because even some of these Caucasian schools, they have basketball programs, football programs,
mhm.
etc. A lot of the African American schools don't have advanced or college level or college prep AP maths or sciences or letters, and that creates a problem. That's the disparity. That's the real disparity. Give
Well,
everybody opportunity. That's what's equal and fair at that point,
well,
but not
but
at 20
yeah,
years old, at
yeah,
7
I
years
mean,
old.
but the reality is this: there's millions of engineering jobs. There's thousands of doctors' jobs. There's only a very finite amount of jobs in the NBA, a finite amount of jobs in the NFL, in a very very short career.
Okay.
And so those jobs are definitely most most people are not going to get those jobs. The overwhelming majority of people are not going to. Maybe only a half of 1% is going to make it to the NBA, if that. So,
Yeah.
but like you said before, we don't in the inner city. When I say we in the inner city, we don't have um, the AP calculus, the AP stuff like that. But even before AP calculus, we don't have the proper algebra or proper geometry
Exactly.
classes that help prep us for those type of classes. You think that that component in the inner city can be subsidized by a maybe like private entities, or maybe like a private a separate entity from the educational system set up by the government, like like clubs, like academic clubs and stuff like that, to kind of like foster those kids from who are very smart at a very early age, but they may be in the inner city and they just don't have the access to this type of education. So maybe then at the very early they can compete in academic games versus NBA games or basketball games or pee wee football games. How does that sound as a type of solution to try to even the playing field?
Again, I think that every program, every system that we use has to be um, appropriated for the situation that we're in. If you say, even if you went to elementary schools or high schools or middle schools and said, you know what, we're starting up an AP calculus club. Who wants to join? You're gonna have two people. You know,
Hmm.
if you went to a predominantly white school or affluent school or area and say, you know what, we're going to start up an after school basketball club that's going to be focused on trying to start from a lower level, or let's say this, a group of pre pro basketball players. You're gonna have two people that join, because most parents are gonna say, you know what, that's cool, but you know what, my son is athletic a bit, or is he? But I prefer him to study. The thing is that we have to separate. We have to create this separation between the fact that, okay, what we want to offer is we want to offer an opportunity, because, as you said before, a fraction of a percent of people will make the NBA, the NFL, the Major League Baseball League, NHL. But the same thing goes for for engineering jobs, programmer jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because now so many people are degree holders and still, unemployed, and they're finding problems, so just because a person is athletic doesn't mean that he's going to go into professional sports. Just like a person who has a lot of academia at his back, at his shoulders, saying in his past, that doesn't mean he's going to find an entry level job as a manager or as a head engineer or as a head doctor. So the thing is that we have to create the opportunities for people to think that, okay, you know what, these are the different options. The thing is that we're boxing people in, saying that, you know what, these are your options. Try your
Mhm.
best to fit in that group of options, because if not, life is going to be hell for you. If you're Caucasian, you go into a affluent or a school in an affluent area, you have to be the best of the best academically. If not, you're not going to get into the schools because of affirmative action. And if you don't get in, you're not going to be able to get an engineering job for Apple or for Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just like the same thing can be said that you know if you're from the urban area, um, if you don't go to this basketball school or all of the basketball clinics, you're not going to be seen or noticed in order to be able to go to get a scholarship to play basketball at a university, which means that you're not going to make it in basketball, and we're subjecting ourselves, and unfortunately, both sides of the ball, both those who are receiving so-called affirmative action, and those who are not receiving it, we're kind of basically putting ourselves in a corner, um, by leaving ourselves without any options apart from what is probably stereotyped, what is probably said, and was probably known for us differently to who you are, whatever category you fall into, as that's our future. If that's not our future, then we're gonna have to struggle, and that creates a big problem for us, Um, so yeah, I think that creates a big problem for us. That limits us. That says that, okay, you know what? All people with brown skin, you have to be, I don't know, a professor of algebra, a basketball player, or a mathematician. People who are not of color, you have to be a historian, an archaeologist, or a blah 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 blah. Those are your options, not the options of other people, but those are your options. If you don't succeed at that, you're not gonna make it. And there are people who make it through on both sides, but
Mhm.
so rare because we don't have those options open for everyone. Okay, so like I said before, affirmative action means to affirmatively, assertively open every avenue, every option, every potentiality for all groups of people, not just one group of people, not another group of people. Because in that case, you start just like we confuse equality and fairness with we start to confuse um, race versus race. And
Mhm.
these are things that shouldn't exist. If we want to connect those ideals, things should be available for all people.
Well,
Or on the surface, it's understandable why you would want to have affirmative action, but the way they go about it and the way they promote it is a different thing.
okay, so we talk about affirmative action at the workplace. What about at the college level? So do you think do you think the same problem exists that exists in corporate America
Well, yeah, basically we said before, yeah,
with having affirmative action?
yeah, because companies are forced to how can I say,
But what about
to,
colleges now?
well, colleges are just businesses themselves. In America, what is it? 93% of universities and colleges are privatized. Even
Mhm.
though they receive so many state grants, so many state funds. But in
Mhm.
the end, they're really, privatized. But they're forced to, let in so many people of a particular descent. Let in, at the detriment of other people who are probably more worthy. You think about those guys who are borderline. They really want to do it. They really want to shine, but they're borderline. And maybe with a bit of instruction, they may, find that final puzzle piece to to have that breakthrough. But because they can't, because they're not exceptional, they're not able to do it. So because you may have something in place where there is somebody who has broken through that threshold and is a minority. So, you know what, as a university, because the state mandates it, I have to choose one of these two people. Okay.
Hmm.
This person who is eligible for equal opportunity, and he's already broken through the mold. And this person who hasn't broken through the mold, but he's very motivated. But because he has broken, I have to choose one. I'll choose the one, you know what I'm saying? Because that helps me make my quota. And
Okay.
that
Let
becomes
me.
that becomes problematic because I think that that's unfair. That's completely unfair for that other person because we all, as people, we develop differently. I had zero development. I just kind of like lollygagged through school until like my ninth year or grade nine. And then I started seeing things clearly. Things started making sense. Some people that might happen to in their second year of university, or may happen, say in their third year of elementary school. Who knows? But if you don't have those opportunities, it becomes difficult.
But I mean, if you don't realize, that's kind of on you, though. You don't think so? Like, if you don't, if you don't deserve the opportunity if you weren't focused from day one, whether
Or
you
you can be
realize it
focused.
or
You can
not.
be focused.
What a lot of it has to do with your parenting too. So your parents help guide you, and when you're, especially when you're really young, to make you get, not make you get focused, but can push you in the right direction or not.
Okay.
And so, like, a lot of minority kids, they do come from broken homes where maybe it's only one parent raising both, all the kids in the house, and so they don't have parents pushing them on the importance of education.
Okay.
And so, then they might not have that realization to the 11th grade that education is important, but by then it's just too late. And so, do you still think it's fair for them to get all the opportunities that
No.
the same kids that have been focused since kindergarten?
No, 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 absolutely not. In fact, like I said, imagine a white kid who's in a similar situation, because they exist. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I hate that, what I'm saying, because some people might misconstrue this as me being, what I'm saying, anti affirmative action, and I'm not. I just anti the way they do it, affirmative action. But the thing is, like, and what about those people who are considered privileged people who are in similar situations, because there are a lot of those who grow up in families where the mother or father is drug dependent, or
Yeah.
the other parent is not around. They're being brought up by their grandmother or the aunts or the uncle or the streets. They exist also. We even knew a
Well,
few of
I
those.
think I think that
you know
plays a factor into college admission. Now you can put that stuff in, and they weigh
yeah,
all
yeah,
that stuff.
they weigh those things. They weigh those things, but
Mhm.
again, like I said, do they weigh those things fairly? So, for example, as an African American male who had who was raised by by their grandparents, and
Mhm.
as a Caucasian male who was raised by his grandparents, if they had to choose, do you think that they would make would they easily choose the Caucasian American because say he went through something that most Caucasians don't go through, or would they
Mhm.
choose the African American because they think that that's part of which becomes stereotypical because most African American males always have one of the parents not there. You know what I'm saying? That's
Mhm.
where it becomes complicated. You know what I'm saying? Like you said before, they do consider those things. They do take those things into account, but they should take those things into account without prior race, things going on.
Without looking at race.
Because
Okay, so,
the
so I have a
prior
question
race,
for you. What if you had two candidates and you're the CEO? So we talk about this on a very macro level, let's a micro level, very very micro level. And you had two candidates were exactly the same, and you hired the minority,
mm,
and you did that 100% of the time. Is that fair?
asking me about what I would do in that situation, I think personally,
Mm.
I would always hire both. Personally, that's if you want, I would even challenge them to, to battle it out in the octagon, to see who's better, not only if they're equal in talent and skill and capacity, who's got that extra grit, who's got that
Mhm.
extra push, I have
Mhm.
them battle it out, I would really definitely hire both of them. I would probably open up another spot, or
Okay.
say if I found myself in that situation where I had to hire one, and I found two candidates, like you said before, who are more or less equally on equal
Well,
grounding.
let me flip it. What if would you be upset at a company that historically, out of the last 100 candidates they hired, they historically 100% of the time always picked the minority, even though they were equal in all other factors and whatnot. They always picked the minority in that situation. Would you be upset at a company, or you think that's fair or unfair or just or unjust, or what's your take on that?
Possibly yes, and possibly no. If the company, again, like I said before, because there are a lot of companies whose their modus operandi, their mo is to try to spread diversity with their name. Okay, obviously, depending on what you want to try to do with the name of your company, that can also have an effect on things. But let's say this from an objective point of view, I could be angry because I would say that you're not giving opportunities to everybody. If it's equal, it's the because the ideal of equal, like I said before, we said that the premise of everything, what I'm saying, is that we want to try to equate equal to fair, not only in theory but also in practice. Because in this case, you're not making it fair in practice. You know what I'm saying? So I would probably try to think of this company as trying to be too woke, right? Or
Hmm.
like I said again, some companies, say even if that, for example, that company might be a minority owned company, and they say, you know what, I want to try to lift up my people, which I don't think that's completely fair either. But I can understand the point of view when you're oppressed and you really feel that saying that that oppression was too strong for your people. You might react in a way where it's a bit extreme, and I think that's a bit extreme. But like I said, objectively speaking, I would even look at a lot of the people who are there involved in that company as token employees, especially if there are very low. There's a very low number of upper management who are minority. If in that company you employ a lots of minorities because of affirmative action, historically, traditionally, statistically, but you have also the diversity in your upper management, I can't say anything to you. That was the choice that you chose. That was the choice that you made. And again, it's a private company. You're a private company. If except for some cases, for example, with the big companies, the Madoffs, the banking companies, the
Hmm.
banking sector, where the company bails you out indifferently if you make money or if you don't make money. But smaller companies, mid-range companies, the government's not going to, they're not going to give you a break because this year, saying you didn't make 75% profit as you did the past 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not gonna always be have my back as the government, why should I follow what you're saying to hire black people or people of color? In that case, yes, I think that that's where the line should be cut. You know what I'm saying? If you have zero diversity, yes. But I think that if
Okay.
you're
Well,
looking at,
well, I have
if you're
one
looking,
question.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that that this maybe this almost it can be forced sometimes search to have to develop diversity in a company or a university, is that inherently unfair or
I think
unjust?
it's unfair. I think it's like I said before. I think that's unfair for the company because they're forced to react to a system that doesn't fit their business model. Their business model was to make a profit, to try and um, make their company more productive. And like I said before, if you find yourself in a situation where you have two candidates, okay, on equal grounding, you know what I'm saying, as far as skills, talents, and their know-how, expertise, etc. All right. Obviously, you will want to try to choose because any smart business person would choose the person because they knew how
Mhm.
hard they had to work. You know what I'm saying? So, as a smart businessman, you would definitely choose that person who came from poor or more difficult situations, indifferently to the so-called race from which he originated or she originated. But if they found themselves having to choose, I think that's making a company have to decide its business model based on the government. And just like when we should separate states from religion, we should also state privatization from the states. Okay, as a state, as a company, if you operate in this state or this country, you have to respect the rules, but those rules don't include you following my business model. Okay, and the same thing can even be said for, you know what I'm saying, you can make rules that's outside of that company. For example, you can say, okay, you know what? No child under the age of 16 is able to work more than 5 hours. And the company decides to make a child under 16 years old to work 6 hours. You're fine. You're shut down. Okay, because that's a rule that you set outside of that company. But you're saying that every company can't hire a youth, then that becomes problematic. The line seems very, it almost seems like the same thing, but it is very different when you're giving me the option to decide to run my business plan in a particular way, and when you're telling me that this is how I should run my business plan, or this is how I should execute my business plan. Because at that point, I'm not a private company, but I'm a government entity. I'm like the United States Postal Service. Government but not government. Have chairman but not chairman. What I'm saying, have senators but not senators. Some kind of board of representatives, but really not. Problems that creates how can I say, discord between a lot of people. Like I said, I'm a true believer in giving everybody an opportunity. I just think that the way we're doing it now only furthers, only enlarges that gap that we've created between both sides, and even some of those that are in the middle. What I'm saying? This ain't really. Should I? What I'm saying? Should I sell myself off as a black candidate when I'm going for this new position, this new post? Should I put? What I'm saying? My great grandmother's black, but everyone else is white. Should I say that? What I'm saying, I'm a quarter black, or I'm an eighth black, so, or I'm an eighth Native American. That becomes crazy, and it's difficult for you. It's difficult for a society, a group of people to remove that ideal if you're constantly making it an issue.